The Minnesota Vikings are firmly in OTAs. What can we learn from OTAs? Is there anything that we can actually glean about JJ McCarthy right now? And this Jalen Ramsey stuff, what can we make of it? How realistic is it? And is it even a good idea? We're going to break down all of that and more here on The Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner is producer Dave. And we are sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing well. We just got done here shortly with the NFC North roundtable. Who will be king? And we discussed happenings in the OTAs and if there are any contract holdouts. And thankfully, our team has none.
Yeah, it's really nice. The Vikings have everybody under contract, and Kevin O'Connell essentially said pretty much everybody was a participant in OTAs, and there were a couple exceptions, one of them being left guard Will Fries. So let's kind of start there. He is still not participating after breaking his right tibia, the lower leg bone, or one of the lower leg bones, in the week 5 matchup that the Colts had last year. And the fact that he's not participating might feel like a red flag, but I think it's really interesting when you listen to some of the things Coach O'Connell has said over the course of his tenure. And he kind of referenced that earlier this week last month, when he was on the Rich Eisen show. And when he was on the Rich Eisen show, I'm going to actually pull it up because I want to get that quote verbatim, because that quote is really, really.
Well, you do that. I'll tell you what he said today about him. He said,
well, I've had that too.
Oh, okay.
I got all of it in one. And these two things they kind of go hand in hand. So what he said about Fries is, it's almost hard to believe with how strong he is, some of the things you're hearing about what he's doing in the weight room, but we're being really smart with the injury that it was. And then once we're able to kind of get him in and get a feel for that, knowing how we handle the spring, I don't know if we'll see him fully active this spring, but I have no hesitation to say that I'm really excited to see him when he's able to get out there, more than likely for training camp. There's still a chance we could see him in bits and pieces of work over the next 2 weeks, but he's in a good spot. Now, lower leg injury, lower leg break. We don't know how severe the break was, but they did not report it as a compound fracture. Compound fracture means you get a clean break and it penetrates the skin. You see bone. You know exactly the type of injury that is. It's the Joe Theismann. So Lewis Cine, I don't believe his ended up being compound. I think it was very close, but it was a complete snap of the leg bone. But one of the reasons why these words ring so true and why I'm not surprised at all that he's not participating is what he said on the Rich Eisen show. And he was asked explicitly about JJ McCarthy being QB1, yada, yada, yada. We've heard those questions asked before, but the answer really emphasizes why they don't care that Will Fries isn't participating. And here's what he said. Rich, right now the rules prohibit even Minnesota Vikings defensive players from lining up across from Minnesota Vikings offensive players. So we would be imagining one heck of an opponent if we said it was us coaches standing out there as defense or some of the other offensive players forming a defense. That's not what this time of year is about. This is the learning, the teaching phase. So much growth and development can happen during this time when there's really no negative outcomes. There's no plays that don't go your way and have a real impact on the team. They're all just learning moments right now, but there's going to come a time where that changes, and it's going to come very rapidly and quickly. This is all about learning and teaching, and I think we forget as fans and analysts sometimes, and not that we don't always know this, but it's not always at the forefront of our minds. We forget that these are humans, that they're teachers. We think of them just as this one track minded. You need to go win games. And of course, that's the ideal outcome. You always want to win football games. That is what you are paid for. However, there are levels to this. There are different things that go into it. And I think these quotes really emphasize that. They're not going to rush him because they don't need to. Plus, the one thing that Will Fries has going for him, Dave, that other people don't, he's got his center coming in. So even though he's on a new team, he's not going to have to get used to a new voice. He's not going to have to get used to a new guy to his left. He's got to learn a new playbook, which everybody knew was going to have to learn that playbook. And he's got a new right tackle, who's an improvement over what he had in Indianapolis with Braden Smith. So this is not surprising, and it's also not a big deal at all. In fact, you could argue that it is a really smart move by the Minnesota Vikings to take it slow. And by taking it slow, they're going to be in a good spot. And I'm really intrigued to kind of see how this ends up working out over the next few weeks. And if we don't see Fries, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't. Because offensive line, not a whole lot you can do with OTAs. It's mainly about your 7-on-7 type of players, because trench work, you're not going to get a lot of it. That's what training camp is for. That's when you're going to get to see pads on pads and them really go after each other. So for right now, no big deal. But it is noteworthy that he's still not participating, even if it's not that big of a deal, because you want to keep tabs on it. We're going to have to keep an eye on it and see, hey, how is this going to look now and later? Because those things all matter. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this ends up playing out fully, but I really don't think it'll be an issue at all. But it's also one of those things, and we kind of talked about this with the Aaron Rodgers thing. It's always going to linger until the question is fully answered. The question's like 99.9% answered, but we still have that 0.1% variable. So that's always going to linger over us. Is that right? Nah, not really. Does it matter? Probably not. We'll find out in time. But
or the Kirk Cousins talk that happened this week as well.
Oh, you mean just that Kirk Cousins didn't show up to OTAs?
And that he's hoping for a trade, and even though Minnesota's on the list, it's the last one on the list, that he's expecting a trade and that the Falcons will trade him.
Oh, I'm not even, that's not even on my radar. The Vikings have their quarterback room. Like, they're not going to trade for Kirk Cousins. It is a 0% chance now. They got Sam Howell. All they had to do was drop 30 spots on day 3. Like, Kirk Cousins is completely done. He is not going to come back to the Minnesota Vikings unless he gets cut and he's on a vet minimum deal. And even then, do you want to bring him into this room? I don't. You're bringing in an extra variable of outside noise. And that's not to say Kirk can't handle it. That's not to say McCarthy can't handle it. But why would you invite it? So for me, Kirk is 100% out. It is very funny that he's sitting out OTAs because of this whole dispute. This whole thing is very funny, and it's very Kirk Cousins. So
I liked when he sat out yesterday, and everybody blew up. Why is he sitting out? And Mike Florio came back with, because he doesn't work Tuesdays.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. Couple of other things from OTAs. McCarthy had some really interesting responses when talking about like Harrison Smith, and there was some interesting stuff from his press conference. I recommend you go listen to it. You'll get a little bit more hearing it come from him rather than me just regurgitating it. So I would recommend you go do that. He talked about Justin Jefferson a little bit, and he didn't answer it directly, but he kind of alluded to the fact that he didn't really work with Jefferson much at all last year. And that kind of tracks because we didn't start seeing him get first team reps until about halfway through what his duration of training camp was. So like end of July, beginning of August, right before that preseason game. Now his training camp is a little bit different than training camp at like training camp was as a whole, because his was short-lived because of the torn meniscus. So it's very interesting in that aspect. I'm very intrigued to kind of see how that chemistry continues to grow. It's obvious that they are developing a relationship from a public eye perspective, which means there's likely a lot more going on behind the scenes. I read somewhere that Justin was inviting him over for dinner, that kind of stuff. And that kind of bonding will help on the field, because when you get to know a person, it helps with those little things on the field. Like chemistry is a huge factor in being a successful quarterback. So they're starting to really build that. And that's going to take time. Time is a very important factor here. You can't expect it to be perfect right away. You can't expect it to be great right away. But it will be good enough right away to where it won't become an issue. And I think that is an important thing here. I'm really, really excited to kind of see what their relationship will translate to on the field early on, because like I really like McCarthy. I didn't love him like a lot of other people did. And you can go back and there's the SKOL search I did about him where I had a lot of questions about, okay, is he going to be able to do a lot of the things that people think he can do at the NFL level? And he just hadn't shown it. That doesn't mean you can't do it, but you have to be able to show it and prove that you can do it. And that was why I was more hesitant on him. I gave him like a late second round grade, but I thought, hey, I think this guy can be a dude. It's just going to take some time. But I do think that they've taken that time, even though it's a time that they haven't necessarily wanted it to be. They wanted him to be able to practice all year. They wanted him to be able to grow and develop without having to deal with the rehab and an injury. But a lot of those things that I had questions about have started to really form into having answers. So I'm a lot more bullish on him now than I was a year ago when we were going through that pre-draft process. But it's going to be very exciting this year. And I think people are underrating the Vikings because of that JJ McCarthy variable.
Yeah, and I remember Thor giving you grief about how you weren't as high on him as Thor was.
I like Thor. Thor's a good friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's really good at what we do, but I think he overrated him. And that doesn't necessarily mean he'll be wrong. That doesn't necessarily mean I'll be right. But the one thing, and I've been, this year I was highest on like 6 different guys in the industry. And it's a really difficult thing when you're the highest on somebody, because there's noise when it comes to crowds. Like there's wisdom in crowds. If everybody believes it, the answer is this, but you believe it's different, why? Why are you so convicted that you're 100% right? Is it your own arrogance and ignorance, or are you seeing things just so clearly and differently from everybody else that they're just missing things? And that can be a very fine line between confidence and arrogance, and something that I know, like from a public perspective, it seems like I've struggled with, because there are people who think I'm just very arrogant when I talk, but in reality, I'm just very confident and I'm not afraid to show that. But it does show that, that through line is very difficult to, parse out, because one person can be like, oh, he's just very confident. He's intelligent. He knows what he's doing. Next person who could be sitting right next to you could just think that I'm just an arrogant piece of crap, because they can interpret things a little bit differently. And that kind of translates to the scouting world. I thought Drake May was far and away the best quarterback in that class. I still think he was far and away the best quarterback in that class. And after watching the rookie film, I still feel good about my take that he was the best quarterback in that class. Now, Jaden Daniels had a better season, but he also had a much better supporting cast. He had a much better, shockingly, a better infrastructure in Washington, of all places. I've barely seen a good Washington team in my lifetime of my cognitive ability to watch and follow football, because they won the Super Bowl in the 1991 season that was held at the Metrodome. I wasn't cognitive to watch football at that point. I was 2 when that Super Bowl was played. But what I saw from May, I really did believe in. And I still really believe in.
Well, I'm just hoping Thor is 100% correct on his take.
And you know what? I'll be thrilled if he is. But I do think that we got to see it to believe anything right now. I feel confident that Kevin O'Connell is going to get the most out of him. I feel excited that we have this young, youthful quarterback who seems to be doing everything right. He's got a lot of tools to work with. But is he going to get to that elite kind of level that we're really betting on him to be? I don't know. And I've seen a lot of really out there speculation like, oh, he's going to be a god. Let's temper those expectations a little bit. Let's not place them on a kid who's never thrown a pass in a regular season game. I even saw the guys at SKOL North, who I work with and I have a lot of respect for, talk about this could be the beginning of his road to Canton. We can't be doing that. We can't put that kind of pressure on this kid. Just let him go out and try to win football games as a first-year starter. You know, if he ends up being this like legendary quarterback, because remember, Pat Mahomes was the 10th overall pick too. And Pat Mahomes became a legendary quarterback at 10th overall. Drew Brees was the first pick in the second round. And he became a legendary quarterback. Like, you never know what you're going to get. There have been countless first round pick busts at quarterback, including in the top 10. So let's see what happens. Like, could he be great? Sure. He could also stink. Quarterback is a position of such high variables, even with the scouting process. What works for one does not work for the other. If you have two guys that just have the exact same scouting report, one is going to likely be good and one's likely going to be bad. And that's just kind of the way it is when it comes to like the scouting process. It's an inexact science. Everything is different, even if it's the same. That's the weird thing. But yeah, to kind of round it off, like, I know Thor was giving me grief about it, and I get it. He's supremely confident in JJ McCarthy. I was supremely confident in Drake May. And I really believed that Drake May was far and away the best quarterback in this class. Time will tell. I'm not willing to back off that take because from what I saw Drake May's rookie year, with what he had, I saw a lot of great stuff. A lot of really great stuff that now that he's got a better infrastructure around him is going to keep progressing and getting better. But with McCarthy, we'll see. This isn't a New England Patriots podcast. So we'll kind of stop talking about it.
Let me switch it then. Speaking of the same quarterback class, did you see Caleb Williams' presser today?
No, but I heard about it.
Oh, he was tap dancing like you wouldn't believe. Yes, I visited the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell, and I thought it was great. And then I was thinking those things that my father said, but then I went and visited the Bears, and I thought I could be the change. I could be the one. I could be the savior. Some sort of stuff. But it was absolutely sounded rehearsed and written for him. But he was brave enough to go up there and address it, so I give him kudos for that.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's
going to be interesting to watch the whole class. Whether it be Drake May, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and of course, JJ McCarthy, who turns out to be the best choice.
I can tell you this, I'm still not buying Bo Nix. I won't do it.
He made the playoffs.
Would he like a cookie?
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Yeah. All right. Let's
now let's talk about, and I think you already hit on it briefly, Justin Jefferson showing up to camp, which he hasn't in the last 2 years, to build chemistry, which you talked about.
Yeah.
Do you think that these extra camps, because he didn't show up until the mandatory one the last couple of years, will help him just as much as it will help J.J. McCarthy and the team this season? Do you think it affects his... We know he's a captain. Do you think it's part of being that he decided to show up for the OTAs?
I think it's multifaceted. I think some of it is the contract. And Justin, in his entire career, he's missed multiple OTAs. He missed the last 2 years. He will not tell you that it's about money. He's very confident in himself, but he's also not going to present himself like a diva. He's very PR conscious without really trying to be PR conscious. He's not giving you boilerplate answers where he's just reading off of like a script and that's what it feels like. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what he's doing. He is giving you great PR. He's not putting himself in a position to look bad. He doesn't want the team to look bad. He just didn't come to OTAs. Now, I do think it speaks of volumes, as kind of you alluded to, where him being at OTAs is huge. I think it's more important this year than it ever has been. But I'll have to look at his contract, because I do think his contract is an important factor here.
Now, Kevin O'Connell talked about he would meet with him about once a week, and they talked about this, being a leader and how important he is to the franchise. Heck, he's the face of the franchise right now. Heck, he's one of the faces of the NFL.
Yeah.
But I think Justin Jefferson is taking a step in his maturity as well with this. Now, whether it's just because J.J. McCarthy needs him, or if it's greater than that, but that's included.
So this year, Justin Jefferson is starting his official contract, and he's getting a $250,000 workout bonus. So he gets $250,000 just for showing up. That's a lot of money. So as much as we want to talk about, it could be McCarthy, it's probably just about money. And you know what? That's okay. It's really not a big deal. But it's noteworthy that he's here for OTAs, and I think that's great. I think it's important that he's here. I think having that chemistry kind of built up is a good thing. I really do. And I'm excited. I think McCarthy, as a first-year starter, is walking into as good, if not better, than any other quarterback situation ever for a first-year guy. The only one I can think of that would be comparable, Dave, is Patrick Mahomes in 2018. How incredible was that group to walk into? Phillip Rivers in 2006. Also, I think they won 14 games that year, or was that 2007? One of those years. They were just phenomenal. So I do think that him walking into this elite infrastructure is so important when we're having that conversation with McCarthy. And it's also really frustrating for me personally when I see all these analysts and like the sports books have the Vikings at an 8.5 win total. Why? Oh, we don't know what McCarthy's going to give you. What if just say he's bang average? Just bang average. Like, that's really good. And this team is essentially quarterback proof. Now, if I'm starting a quarterback, this team will lose every game. But an average starting quarterback in the NFL, you're not asking him to be elite, ask him to be Alex Smith. Like young Alex Smith. When, like, right before Colin Kaepernick took over with the 49ers, Alex Smith. That guy was good at football. And that matters because this offense is built really well. The defense is built really well. And he does not have to do a whole lot. You're not asking this guy to be a god. You're asking him to play football. Just go out there and play. We have a great offensive line. We're projected to have a much better running game. We've got elite weapons on the outside. We've got a great defense. Just don't screw up. Learn on the fly. The Vikings are going to be fine. And the fact that there's no conversation with a lot of these national guys, oh, we just don't know what McCarthy's going to be. Oh, the defense won't be that good again. Okay. Well, what if McCarthy's average? Then let's parse that out. The Vikings could still win 12 games because they have dudes in the trenches now. They have great guys on the outside. They have a lot of talent. They have great coaching. The narrative surrounding the Vikings right now from a national perspective is really annoying. It sucks. It really sucks. But you know what doesn't suck, Dave? Playing underdog fantasy.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about popsicles or something.
I do love a good fudgesicle. Those, remember the ice cream man? They have those little chocolatey Claire ones. All those were my jam. But my jam is also our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Wolves play tonight. It is a must-win Game 5 after a brutal loss in Game 4. But there were still a lot of positives that you could take from it, including, well, the Thunder probably aren't going to shoot that good again from 3. And if you can keep up that pressure, which the Wolves have shown they can do in spurts, they can win Game 5 and potentially make this a really good series. But have a little extra fun. Anthony Edwards did not score many points. He only took, I think, 17 shots on Monday night. Take the over on Anthony Edwards' total points tonight. I think he's going to have that game where he's got to step up and he's got to make an impact. And you can do that. You can just 2 to 8 players, higher or lower on a stat, and you can win up to 1,000 times your bet. Best part is the promo code Forno. Up to $1,000 in bonus credits on your first deposit. And that's going to be a lot of fun. You can do it all over the United States of America. Well, most states, that is. If you're in Iowa, I'm sorry. But if you're in Minnesota, like I am, hell yeah. Dave, he's in Missouri. He can play too. It's a lot of fun. Promo code FORNO. And just remember, this is all about fun. And if you feel like you are starting to have a problem, please contact 1-800-GAMBLER, mpcgambling.org. All right, Dave. I want to address this because I saw the chat obviously blowing up, and we had quite a bit to talk about, and we kind of got into a couple tangents. There's a lot of Dalton Reisner chat in the chat tonight. Big Raylan Dad's like, they're going to regret not re-signing Dalton Reisner. I'm going to be honest. No, I don't think they will. He's not good. Like, if you want to say he's better than Ed Ingram, fine. I think Ed Ingram's better than Dalton Reisner. And that's just, from my perspective, a difference of styles. Do you want the more consistent but not great style? Or do you want the up and down style of Ingram? That's really the semantics we're talking over, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't think Reisner is good. There's a reason why he's not available. Reason he's still available. One guy who's available, Dave, that we're going to talk about, Jalen Ramsey. I wrote over the weekend that I thought it would be a mistake to trade for him. And a couple of the reasons why is you're inheriting this 3-year, $72 million contract. You're going to have to give up assets to acquire him. And how good is he really going to be based on what you're going to have to pay him or pay for him? If you're just adding him to like a contract like Stephon Gilmore's, or even, let's say double that. Let's say a 1 year, $14 million. Okay, I'll take that. Like, yeah, it's a little pricey, but you can maneuver. And like when he was coming out, people were talking about he should play safety because of how his skill sets and stuff would translate immediately to play safety. But how much are you really going to want to give up for this guy? And the reason why it's becoming a really big factor right now is because of the June 1st date. Trading him after June 1st makes it significantly easier for the Dolphins to move on from him because you can split up the cap costs. I think it would be a mistake to trade for him because of what you're getting and what you're going to have to pay. Like, you're probably going to have to give up a 4th or a 5th round pick, which doesn't seem like a lot. But you're inheriting a $21 million contract. And luckily, that's essentially a 1-year rental because he has no guaranteed money after this year. So you could cut him if he stinks. But then you just paid $21 million for a guy who stunk. And I think there are some elements to his game that give you cause for concern. I'm not going to tell you that he's bad. He's not bad. He's still very good. But are you paying for 27-year-old elite best corner in the league, Jalen Ramsey? You're not.
You gotta remember, he made a Pro Bowl 7 times and was an All-Pro 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he will be 31 this season if we grab him.
Yeah.
But what did we do with ancient cornerbacks last year when we had to because the young guys either, unfortunately, Khyree Jackson died a year ago in a car accident, or Blackman blew his knee out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's part of it. So he's about to turn 31, as you mentioned. He turned 31, I think it's October 24th. You're not paying for a guy who's entering his prime. You're paying for a guy who's about to exit his prime. And if you get the right deal where the Dolphins will eat a certain amount of the cap, and okay, sure, I can handle that. But I don't want to inherit this contract. And I don't think he's at this all-pro level anymore. I think the all-pro days are behind. I do think he's still capable of making a Pro Bowl. But you're talking about a guy who went from being like most people's unanimous top cornerback in the league to this guy's like a fringe top 5 corner. And while that seems like it would be an upgrade, which it absolutely would, I'm trying to look at this from a long-term perspective. How much is that cap space going to be worth to pay a guy like Ramsey, who's probably never going to ascend again? He's on the decline. And he posted some of his worst numbers last year with the Dolphins. One of them being just the second time he allowed a higher than 65% completion percentage. But he also allowed, for the first time, a 70+% completion percentage against him. That's significant. And it's something that is a cause for concern. Now, numbers aren't everything, and we've talked a lot about numbers and how I don't think you should just go box score scout, because I think just looking at numbers gives you a complete void of why those numbers are there in the first place. I just don't think that Ramsey is quite the same guy that he was when Kevin O'Connell coached him a few years ago. And that's where some of these, some of these are linked, because O'Connell, a lot of those guys on the staff were with Ramsey when he was with the Rams. And he's a good football player. But is he this elite guy anymore? Personally, I have major questions about it. And I do think that he can be a really good player, but cornerback's a weird one because there is talent in that cornerback room. Byron Murphy is proven. He's a Pro Bowler. He was a fringe All-Pro. He was that good last year. Outside of Murphy, you have some talented players that still need to step up and prove themselves.
Blackman, for example.
Isaiah Rodgers, the Vikings are incredibly high on. Flores loves him. And that's the kind of cornerback Flores likes. Patient, explosive, feisty. It's kind of similar to Byron Murphy, but Murphy is an inside-out kind of guy. Rodgers is mainly just an outside guy. He's not going to play a lot of slot. So you have Blackman. You have Okudah, who's a veteran who's got high upside in theory, but he can't stay healthy. Tavier Thomas is a really good core special teams guy, and he can also play the nickel. Dwight McGlothern, you signed as an undrafted free agent. And then you have Zamiah Vaughn, who kind of fits the Dwight McGlothern mold as far as size, build, athleticism, play style. So it seems like they have a type. And they brought in Tommy Hill in rookie minicamp, but they did not sign Hill to a contract. So he is not with the Vikings anymore. He is now, I think, a Birmingham Stallion in the UFL, which I hope he thrives because I really like Tommy Hill. I thought he was a guy that could make it and maybe make the 53.
Yeah, hey, for those that come in and try out and don't make it, but make the UFL, it's another step added to being able, the possibility of making the NFL. And so I hope for Tommy he does well.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely.
Now, but there was one thing I heard or read. What if Mr. Ramsey is cut after June 1st?
That's a good question. I don't know how much I'd be willing to pay him. I think there's a price where I would feel comfortable with that, but I'm not 100% sure what that price would be.
10 million, 15 million?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, he's going to get guaranteed. He's going to get his paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So it could possibly be as low as whatever vet min is. But I'm curious.
Are you going to want to give that guy a lot of guaranteed money? And if you're Ramsey, what kind of contract do you want? Do you want a 1 or 2 year deal? Do you want a 3 or 4 year deal? So how he hits the marketplace is also interesting. I highly, highly, highly doubt the Dolphins cut him. It's definitely possible because teams just may not be willing to pay the asking price. If they're not willing to pay the asking price, well, tough luck, buddy. Only so much you can do there. But if he's cut, yeah, you absolutely go try and sign him. But it's got to be on your terms. And it's got to be for the right dollar amount that makes sense for your salary cap. And to me, that's a big question mark. Are the Vikings going to be able to find that dollar amount? Are they going to be able to agree with Ramsey on something that makes sense for them on the salary cap? Because there's always a number that makes sense for Ramsey that makes sense for his wallet. And that's how he should think. Because you have such a limited time to make money in this league that you need to maximize as much as you can. I'll applaud everybody who does that. But that also means that I just may be out on trying to sign you because you want too much.
Mm-hmm.
If Ramsey's available
after June 1st,
cut who this year and it's a $1 million cap hit?
No,
what are they
cut
talking
him as
about?
$51 million. Ramsey. I don't think it's that much if they cut him after June 1st. Because they're spreading out the guaranteed money, which would be over 2 years.
And this is where things could get really interesting too. It's an extra $14 million dead this year with a post June 1st designation. Cutting probably doesn't make any sense, but it also depends on the offset language, Dave. What happens with the full guarantees if he gets cut and then he goes and signs somewhere else? Is it a Russell Wilson situation where he just signs for the vet minimum? And then the Dolphins have to pay the majority of that still? Could you benefit from that? I don't think they'll cut him, but it certainly feels like that this situation is going to end because they basically told you, yeah, he's gone. He's not going to be here. Who's going to be
guaranteed on the contract?
So he has a guaranteed salary this year of $24,235,000. That includes the option bonus and roster bonus that he was due, plus his base salary. So in cash, he's getting $24.235 million. How much of that the Dolphins would be willing to pick up in a trade could also get them a better draft pick. Worth noting, the Vikings don't have a fourth. They have, I think, a fifth, couple sevenths, and whatever comp picks they are not allowed to trade until they actually get them, which is like next March. So maneuvering with a trade for Ramsey could prove difficult, but also could be, hey, Dolphins, you give us a fifth this year, we'll give you a third and 27. Like, you can maneuver that way too. So fascinated to see how they maneuver with this. Fascinated to see how they try and improve the situation. I just don't think I would trade for Jalen Ramsey. It would be an all-in move. The Vikings are trying to prove and trying to win that Super Bowl. This would be an all-in type of move. But is it the right all-in move? I personally would say no, because of the financial implications and what Ramsey is and what he will be. But I certainly can't tell you that it would be a bad move. I just don't think it would be the right one. He would start right away. And he would be a really good player right away. But an average annual value of $24 million, like his base salary next year, $10 million. His cap hit for a team that acquires him would be anywhere from like 13 million to like 19 million based on how the option bonuses and stuff are kind of playing out. Because the one tough part about the over the cap system is the option bonuses. We don't know like when exactly they're paid out. It's kind of an interesting one. So it'll be fascinating to kind of see how the trade negotiations go from a private perspective and what we learn publicly. Because Albert Breer said a fourth or fifth might be able to get it done depending on how much the Dolphins are willing to absorb. Breer says it that holds a lot of weight. Breer knows what he's doing. So I don't know. Dave, what do you think? Just like, are you comfortable with Jalen Ramsey? Are you comfortable with?
I'm comfortable with the idea of Jalen Ramsey playing on the team. Now, for all that money, no, I'm not. And for taking future picks out of the draft, no, I'm not, because I think Kwesi's actually gotten better in the draft. Why waste the picks? But for an all-in move, I could see the Vikings possibly doing that, but I'm not sure. KFAN77 asked, who's the one player on the defense that could put us over the top? Is Ramsey that guy?
Yeah. Big Roland Dad says he can read Spot Track as well. I will never use Spot Track. Spot Track is bad. Don't use Spot Track. Use Over the Cap.
And yes, T-Bass, I want to see what Blackman can do. We drafted.
Yeah. The one guy who could just elevate this group that's realistically available. Like, I really don't know who's realistically available other than Jalen Ramsey. That's the tough part. We thought maybe a Jeffrey Simmons or a Dexter Lawrence. Those didn't manifest. And the Dexter Lawrence one was fun to talk about, and we did a show on it, and we talked about the ins and outs. But even we prefaced it.
Sexy Dexy.
Oh, would have been great. But that's kind of what Kevin Grant was. He was that type of profile. In fact, I think there was, in theory, more upside as a pass rusher than what Dexter Lawrence showed in college. But like, is Ramsey worth it? Is he worth that swing? I don't know.
31?
Like,
you could always say move him to safety. Well, do you want him to move him to safety?
I'm not paying that kind of money in draft capital to move him to safety. But I do think in a couple years, when he eventually ages out of corner, I think he'd be a really good safety. Because remember, like I mentioned earlier in the show, there was real talk coming out that he should play safety full time.
I know.
So,
but the question is, if you move him to safety, what do you do with Theo Jackson and Metellus? And is Metellus going to get an extension? There's another question that's been buzzing around.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what a Metellus extension would look like. I kind of projected like a Byron Murphy extension, and I got pretty close. I projected 3 years, 48, and outside of the ridiculous incentives built in his contract, it was 3 years, 54. So I was pretty close. Bynum, I had 3 for 36. He got 4 for 60. So $3 extra million average annual value. And it can be hard sometimes to truly gauge how much the market will pay a guy because of how much the contracts are exponentially going up. So Metellus, what is he going to get, like 10? I think 10 is plausible. You're giving 10 right now to an aging out Harrison Smith. I think 10 for a guy like Metellus would make some sense, especially because so much of his game doesn't rely on just being a great athlete. It relies on him being smart and intelligent. It's an interesting group. I think if I were to add a player, it would probably be a corner. I would not be opposed to adding another defensive lineman, though, whether it be an edge or a D tackle. If you have a guy that comes available that's just really, really good, just add him. Who cares? So Taki Taimani or Jalen Redmond doesn't make the team. Okay, put him on the practice squad.
I could see Redmond making the team over time money.
No, my point is, if you bring in another top D lineman, one of those guys probably isn't making the team. So those are the kind of things you have to weigh out. I think right now the Vikings are set. And once things kind of grow throughout the course of the year, then maybe somebody will become available that you can trade for. And at that point, like, they gave up a fourth for Cam Robinson. Great trade. Like, the Vikings won 9 straight games with him before everything fell apart at the end. And you know what? It fell apart against 2 really damn good football teams. It's okay that they fell apart against 2 really good football teams.
No, it's not. We want to win.
Well, that's not my point, Dave. Like, if you're going to fall apart, good teams take advantage of poor position groups. They take advantage of bad players. Bad teams don't. They beat the bad teams. Their injuries caught up to them against the good teams. So moving forward, you have an improved offensive line. Those won't be an issue anymore. But considering the situation they were in, it's really not a big deal that they lost those games, because they got to a point where they won 14. They shouldn't have won 14, but they did. And now this team is set up to be significantly better. And I'm intrigued to see if they're willing to add anybody. I don't know. But I can tell you, I'm very excited for this season. I'm excited to kind of see more growth from McCarthy. We're going to have another day of OTAs with media availability next Monday. And we're going to have more and more and more coming about the Minnesota Vikings for the 2025 season. That is going to be our show for today. Jalen Ramsey, maybe. I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments after the show. And give us a like, subscribe, and ring the bell. We want to keep growing this thing.
A lot of people have. I'm showing 30 likes and 72 watching at this point. So I do want to appreciate everybody that's been in the chat. You guys have posted some great comments across the board, whether you agree or disagree. It's cool to see you all.
Yes, 100%. We're going to be back next Monday. Dave and Darren will be here on Sunday talking.
Yes, we will. And Darren's back up in the yellow knife finally.
Hey, it took long enough.
I know. Took long another vacation.
One day, he'll stay home. That day is not today. But until then, we'll see you next Monday. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone.